Hey, so I'm getting married next month to the love of my life. We met back in high school, but didn't start dating until the very end of senior year. When it came time to graduate and move to the next stages in our lives, she decided to go to college and become a nurse. I myself said, screw college, I'm just gonna try and make this art curation stuff work. And honestly, I had no fear. I truly felt that if I tried my best and put all I had into this, that it could work out. Well, after 6 months of networking on my computer every day, posting and talking to artists and galleries, I finally secured my first curated exhibition in the city of New York, which was at Kraus Gallery. I was over the moon excited, but there was one issue. I was running out of the money that I had saved up, and it would cost a lot to go to New York for the show. So in the meantime, I got a part-time job and saved all I could. My fiance also saved up her money at the time, and together we flew to NYC for our first trip as a couple and our first trip since turning 18. While we were there, we did more than just my exhibition. We went to museums, out to eat, art shows, all kinds of different things, and she split the cost of the entire trip with me. I look back now and I think of how much belief she had in me. There were plenty of family members trying to tell me to do something else with my life, but Jeanette, she could see my dream and my potential even then and still does to this day. And I just don't know where I would be today if it wasn't for her support of my dreams. There is no denying that money is important to live. Often when you want to chase a dream, you will have to sacrifice not only money, but time and countless other luxuries. But when you want something bad enough, you will do whatever it takes to achieve it. These are the stories about the lives that shape art. I'm Jacob Johnson, and this is the My Art is Real podcast. Right after the break. This episode is sponsored by you, the listener. If this podcast has inspired you in any way, please follow us and leave a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And let anyone that you know about this incredible podcast. This show takes a lot of work, and I couldn't do it without you. And if you're looking for any bonus content, please consider signing up for our Patreon page at patreon.com/myartisreal, where I will be uploading bonus episodes every month. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the episode.
So my name is Linnea Strid. I'm from a very small Swedish village, Järbo. That's where I grew up. And I currently live not far from there in a town called Gävle in Sweden. And I work as an artist, a painter, full time.
Linnea makes realistic oil paintings for a living today, but that wasn't always the case. While growing up, Linnea was sort of a loner. She had a few friends, but never really seemed to fit in. She was a shy kid and would keep to herself most of the days and had trouble branching out and meeting new people.
Well, it was a good childhood I had there. Very calm. Like I said, it's a very tiny place. I think it had like 3,500 people living there back then. So it was very small and not many people around, but it was very calm and very peaceful. And I enjoyed growing up there. Maybe until I turned into a teenager and I started feeling like I was too big for that place. And maybe I wanted to see more of the world. And I don't know, just a typical feeling of maybe not fitting in. Yeah, maybe there are not enough people here that I can relate to or that can relate to me. And just feeling kind of lonely in that way. Like I don't have anyone really that understands me in the way that I am. You know, I was a kind of a shy or laid back, quiet kid, but I was kind of comfortable with that. You know, I had friends as a kid, and which was kind of weird because I never really made an effort to like call friends like we did back then. Call them up like, hey, you wanna play today? I never did that. Basically, I always had people coming to me and wanting to play at my home, you know. And if they didn't call me or come over, I would be like, yeah, that's fine. I'm just gonna be by myself, and I was happy with doing that. So I don't know. I guess I thought I was shy, but I think I realized that it was more about me being an introvert.
Hey, could you explain to me a little bit more about how you felt different?
Like I wasn't secure enough to reach out and try to make new friends. So I tried to cling on to the friends that I grew up with, and they like I said before, they're very extroverted, and they had got new friends really easily, you know, growing up, and I felt like I was stuck in the role that I always had played growing up, like the shy and quiet girl, you know. And yeah, I just I wanted to find more people that were like me, like more alternative people, so to speak. But I think I was just confused and a bit lost, you know.
From a young age, Linnea was always into art, either drawing or painting. Not only did she enjoy to make art, but she was extremely passionate about it. So none of your friends growing up, none of them were into art or anything?
I mean, we had maybe someone else in class who were really like good at making art, but they didn't have the same passion for it, I guess, that I did. So yeah, they kind of lost that interest as we grew older, and they started doing other things and going out with boys and doing stuff, and I was kind of like alone with that.
This phase of Linnea's life wouldn't last too long, as when she turned 16, her and her family decided to move to Spain.
When I turned 16, my parents, because a few years before, my parents had bought a summer vacation house in the south of Spain. So, and they really wanted to move there. And I was like kind of hesitant for a bit. But then when I turned 16, I was going to start high school. And we all decided that we were going to move there. So we moved to Spain, and that actually changed everything.
When in Sweden, she was shy and lonely. But in Spain, it was a completely different story. She met a boy right away and started dating. And along with that relationship, she fell into a whole group of new friends that shared her interest. Yeah, what was that like, moving to Spain at 16?
It was a huge difference coming from a very small town and then ending up in the middle of a city as a foreigner and trying to learn the language. And it wasn't difficult finding new friends because I almost instantly started going out with a Spanish guy there, and I sort of adopted his friends as well. So and they were really like, I don't know, they liked art and the same kind of music that I did, and yeah, it was. I think it was exactly what I needed.
So, did you feel like you fit in a lot better there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so strange that I had to go from all the way down to Spain to to feel like I fit in somewhere, you know. And trying to get into a new culture and everything that entails, you know. But it was I don't know, it was just so much fun and exciting to learn so much and to be able to experience things that I never could have really dreamed of.
My fiance comes from a Mexican household, and as I've been around her family, I've picked up on a few Spanish words here and there, but I would not even come close to saying I know Spanish, even enough to have a basic conversation. For Linnea, she had to learn Spanish and learn it quickly if she was going to be able to take part in any deeper conversations while in Spain.
Getting into the culture and understanding the culture was not so hard because I think at that age you are really adaptable and you're I don't know, you can blend in a way that might be harder the older you get. But the language was kind of hard at first because I felt like there was a lot of pressure since since I had a lot of Spanish friends. There was sort of the understanding that I had to learn Spanish like fast, and so and I wanted to because I was always sitting in a corner. Like I really wanted to take part in conversations and stuff, but I couldn't because there was a language barrier. So tried to talk English with me and all that. But it was always like to a point, and then they just talked Spanish, and I was left kind of like, okay, feeling frustrated. But I did learn it quite fast. After like 2 years there, I spoke almost fluently, because you learn a lot easier when you're that young. So thankfully.
Linnea would continue to live in Spain and enjoy her life there until the age of 21. While she was there, she continued to create art and even participate in various art shows. As much as Spain helped her open up socially and find a place to fit in, it also became a place she could no longer see herself. She felt like she was losing her language of Swedish. She was desiring to go back to her home in Sweden and pursue life as an artist living there. And so, when you got done with school, did you go to university?
Yeah, I wanted to go to an art college, like an art university. I was also having the feeling that because I was starting to forget Swedish. I couldn't like remember a lot of words. Because I was always talking in Spanish with my friends and my boyfriend and my boyfriend's family. The only people I was speaking Swedish with were my parents, pretty much. So I was feeling like maybe I should go back to Sweden and kind of become a grown up in my home country as well, because I took my driver's license in Spain, so I knew all the parts, like about how to drive and all the parts of a car in in Spanish, but I didn't know any of the words in Swedish. So that was like a bit weird for me. Like I wanted to learn grown up language in Swedish as well, so to speak. And I don't know, like there was some part of my identity, like I need to make myself whole, because I felt like there was part missing of me because I left Sweden so young. So yeah, I wanted to go back. So and go to and get an art education as well in Sweden if I could.
And as crazy as it might seem to some, Linnea missed the long winters and changing seasons of Sweden.
This is also like a kind of a cliche thing to say, because everyone in Sweden says, no, we love the different seasons we have here, the spring and the summer and the fall and the winter. But I actually kind of missed that, because that was one of the reasons why my parents wanted to move down there, because we were sick of the long, cold winters here and the rain in the summer. But once we hadn't had it for some years, you were like, oh, I kind of miss the cold season as well, and the snow a little bit, and maybe having some rain in the summer is kind of nice.
When Linnea moved back to Sweden, she was starting all over. She was now 21 and had just broken up with her boyfriend of 6 years. She left him and her friend group behind in Spain. It was a fresh start, but something she felt she needed if she was going to make it as an adult and achieve her dream, the dream of being an artist.
Yeah, that has always been like my identity. Since I was a small kid, that was everything I wanted to be like. And it was never like a question about, oh, I don't know how to make a living. I don't know how. No one ever put that in my head, like, oh, it's going to be difficult. So I was very naive about it too, and felt like, oh, it shouldn't be so hard. I'm just going to be an artist. It's going to be fine. I'm going to show at galleries and museums, and I'm going to be famous.
Linnea's parents are a lot like mine. They fully support you in your dreams, seemingly no matter what. Maybe they can truly see in us what it is we believe to be true of ourselves. And when you are pursuing any dream, having that unrealistic confidence is pretty necessary. Could you maybe walk me through a little bit of your art progression? Because I'm curious as to if you were painting before college or what medium you worked in.
I started off drawing. That was always what I did when I grew up. I used to make portraits of friends and their boyfriends and girlfriends in school, just to, I don't know, to become more popular, I guess, and have friends. And so I used like graphite or a color pencil, and that was like my medium until when I started to get more and more into oils, and I discovered what fantastic medium that was. And I also started to dabble with watercolor. But I don't know, it hasn't been until maybe maybe in 2008, 2009, when I really felt like, no, oils, that's that's what I'm gonna focus on. That's really what I feel most comfortable working with, and I feel more, I don't know, satisfied with the results.
Let's be honest. I didn't go to college, and for most of my time in high school, I knew I didn't want to go. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and once I discovered art, I was dead set on pursuing that and felt like college would have just sucked up my time and money. I say all this to let you know that I have a very basic understanding of how college even works here in America, so I really don't have any clue how it works in other countries like Sweden. So let's get Linnea to explain it to us all.
Well, I got into, because in Sweden there's a kind of a way of doing things. If you want to apply to an art college or something in that manner, you have to go to preparatory education. I don't know if that's a, so you usually go to a school like that for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then you apply to the college you're interested in, and if you're lucky, you get in. But there are really like very few seats in those schools, and you maybe like 20 people get in, and there are 2,000 people applying to those.
So Linnea did her initial classes and then applied to go to art college. And well, it didn't quite go how she planned. It was the first time in her life that she started to doubt her artistic abilities.
So it's a very hard, stiff competition. And I tried applying, I don't know how many years, I think 3 or 4 years I applied. And I always got turned down. I was kind of defeated by that. And I felt like, okay, so obviously I'm not good enough to be an artist. All my life I had been told that I was like amazing and I was the best. And I was, I don't know, I had such confidence in that one thing, I was so good at making art. And then my big dream in life was like shattered by their response, like, no, sorry, you're not welcome here. I really started to doubt myself, like, maybe I'm not good enough to do this. Maybe I'm not cut out to be an artist. Yeah, maybe I should just do something else.
So what did you do next? What was your next step?
I applied to another university where I was going to try to become a translator or something like that. Since I was good at Spanish, I thought maybe I should work with that, like translating books or movies or whatever. So I did that for I think a year, and it was I think it was fun, but I always felt like, I don't know, it was kind of draining, because I'm like I said before, I've never been like great in school, but I've never been bad in school either. And to get good grades that I wanted to have, I had to work really hard for them. So my whole life was like only evolving around producing like really good grades, and working really hard and studying. So I didn't have time to make art or do anything else, basically. Realized that I can't do that. I can't, like, am I going to do this for 5 more years or 4 and then get a job that I'm not even like passionate about? Like, it felt really like pointless.
There's a lot to be said about individuals who are able to just work a normal job and come home to their families and enjoy the weekend. But there are some others, including myself and Linnea, who have this feeling that if we don't chase our dreams, a part of us will die. So Linnea quit trying to do school and decided it was time to just carve her own path within the art world.
Well, the plan was, I had some money saved up from living this student life where you also have to live cheaply, not waste any money. Yeah, I have enough money to be able to survive for a year. So I'm just going to take the leap and I'm going to be a full-time artist.
Before she had quit the translation courses, Linnea had already been making art and selling here and there and doing a lot of commissions to make money. She was a student at the time and was living mostly off her student funds and these commissions to get by, so she had to learn to be very strict with her money, which she also had very little of.
But I learned very early on that I can't have any big expenses, so I have never bought anything for myself. Like, I rarely buy clothes. Well, I only buy secondhand clothes. I don't buy stuff. I'm not really into buying things, so I live really, I really don't have any expenses. These days when you go to the bank, you're like, oh, I need to take a loan for this or that, and they're like, but you don't really have a good income. What do you survive on? Like, what do you mean? This is my income. Like, it's a lot of money for me. And they're like, no, I can survive on this, on this money. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. Like,
So, with enough money for Linnea to survive a year, she got to work on pushing the art as much as she could, which was actually a big challenge to do in Sweden without that art degree.
I live in Sweden, and Sweden is not a good place for artists, unfortunately. Spain was much better. They have another view on art there. Art is more, and culture in general is much more appreciated, and I don't know, they look up on artists in a way that we don't do here. Here it's like, oh, you're an artist. Like, okay, so what's your real job? Like, you do that on the, like, as a hobby. You can't actually be an artist. That's just weird, like, oh, you just sit around and paint all day. Like, I don't know, people are a bit like, they are, when you tell them, they're a bit, mostly they're surprised and sometimes impressed, but mostly just confused, like how and why.
So then how did you start to get your work into galleries?
Well, at first I was seeking out exhibitions by myself, because I always knew that I actually started showing when I still lived in Spain. I had my first solo show when I was 19 at because they were very inclusive in Spain. Like, it felt like everyone loved art. Everyone was positive about, like, everyone was so like, oh, you're only like a teenager and you're so good at art. Oh my God, yeah, we want to show you, and you should join us in this thing, this group show. And so I had my first solo show there, and once I moved back to Sweden, it wasn't so easy to get into shows, but because they always ask you, like, oh, you have a degree, like, where did you study? Like, you're not really an artist until you have an art degree, kind of. It's very elitist. It's like a special club that you're not really allowed into unless you have done a few things. And
So Linnea had to take other routes to get her art seen.
I just realized that if I want to make money, if I want to show my work, I need to, like, actually reach out to all the places. Like, go to I went to a coffee shop, like, hey, can I hang my work here? And they were like, yeah, fine, sure, do it, and after a while, I don't know how, but people seem to know of me somehow. I don't know how, word of mouth. I'm not sure. So I got invited to solo shows as well, in some galleries in Stockholm and in Uppsala. They went okay, but I sold most of those paintings to collectors in other countries. So Sweden is not a good place to if you want to sell art, unfortunately, and not in my experience anyway. Maybe other people have a different experience.
With not many options to showcase her art in Sweden, Linnea turned to the internet, which was a lot different back then. There was no Instagram, so everyone was on sites like Flickr and DeviantArt, and even their own personal blogs, which Linnea did all of that.
This was in the early 2000s. I think I started selling paintings over the internet in, when was that? Maybe in 2008, I think. Through DeviantArt and Flickr, sites like that, and through my own website, my own blog. That was the time when you could actually have a website, and people would go there like, oh, what's happened? What is Linnea uploading today? Like, yeah, people would go in there, like, leave a comment or drop you an email, like, oh, is this piece available? I want to buy it. And we're like, yeah, and things were going really good. So weird.
And before all that, when you were still in school, how did you get commissions?
I think it was just family and friends. The word sort of, like, got around like that. It was really weird. I've always had so many supportive people around me. Like, everyone really wanted to support me, and everyone were talking with their friends about me and showing what I had done. That's kind of always how I've been doing things. I've never been like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't afford my work. Like, putting my prices too high. I always put them a little, before I started showing at galleries, I always put them a little lower, because I thought it was always important to get more sales, which would generate more views and like more eyes on my work, and that would in turn like create more interest in what I did, you know. So that was kind of I don't know, and I don't know how it worked out, but it always worked out somehow. And during the really rough times when I've been like, okay, I'm just gonna give up. Maybe I could be an art teacher. You know, I had those periods. I have those periods like at least once a year where I'm like, oh, this is so hard. I'm gonna give up. But when I when I went through that when I was younger, I always had my parents like, you know, I think it's time that we commission you on on something. Like we need a new painting here, and then that would help me out.
It's honestly so rare to have parents as supportive as Linnea's who are constantly commissioning you to paint new works to help grow your career. I mean, they really did believe in her, even when she had doubts herself. But it didn't take long into her year of fully focusing on art for things to start to take off.
It went rather well, actually. I mean, it didn't fly off immediately, but maybe it took like 6 months or so, maybe a little more, before I started to get like really big galleries reaching out to me. And this was before Instagram and before Facebook and everything. So that's why it's really hard when young artists today reach out and they're like, oh, how did you do it? Like how do you become like big artist, and how do you show at big galleries? I was like, I can't tell you how to do it today, because this is like how I did it back in 2008, and it's not the same place, it's not the same world. Everyone's journey is so different. Things just happened. It went really fast. I I think I decided to become a full-time artist maybe in late 2008, and then in October or November in 2009, I was invited to a show in Chicago by an artist and art professor there at a school. I think no, it was university. I think. Anyway, they had like a gallery in the university where they show different artists, and I got invited, and they paid for my trip over and everything. It was so nice, and that was like the highlight of my career up until then, you know. And I don't know. After that trip, maybe a month after or so, I got contacted by ThinkSpace, and they wanted to start showing me a bit as well. So yeah, that's when things really started to take off for me.
You know, Linnea actually started to showcase her artworks all the way in LA at ThinkSpace Gallery pretty early on in their creation, which we actually did an episode with one of the founders and the head curator, Andrew. So if you want to check that out, go listen to episode 16. Well, things just kept growing for her. She kept painting and showcasing it wherever she could and was working as hard as she could to make her dream a reality, because the only thing she could ever see herself doing was paint. And being an artist, how do you deal with the stresses of, you know, not having a predictable income and you kind of never knowing what's going to happen next?
Yeah, I think I did it the same way that I do it to this day. That I'm always I get a chunk of money, and I'm always like, okay, I have this amount for to pay my bills and to pay food or buy clothes for my kids or whatever, and then the rest that is left, I'm not gonna spend it on whatever. I'm just gonna put it aside, because there might be a time when I don't get any money at all for like 3 months. I don't sell any paintings, and then I'm just gonna set it aside for for worse times, you know. So that's what I've always done. I've always been saving up, and now I reached a point where I'm like, what am I saving this money for? Like, I know that times are probably getting worse, and I'm like, but maybe I should sometimes like actually treat myself to something. Why don't I treat myself? But I'm like, nah, maybe you don't know. Next year could be terrible. Maybe next year I don't make any money at all, and then yeah, I spent all my money on that I don't really need. Like, why would I do that? You know, so it's a difficult balance, you know. Like you want to live while you live, but you also don't want to spend it all because you want to be able to continue creating and living this life. And I think a lot of people cannot relate to this attitude at all. They'll be like, oh, that must be terrible. There must be such torture not being able to spend money on whatever you want every day. And it's like, yeah, but I don't have the need for that. You know, my biggest need in life is to be able to sit in front of my easel every day doing what I love. That's literally the only thing that I want and need in my life.
And so finally, once you had achieved that dream of being a working, living artist, how does it feel for you now?
It's amazing. It's the best. I am so happy. I feel so blessed. I don't know how to explain it, but I just feel so lucky that I'm able to do what I love every day. And I suffer for the people who can't live their dream. You know, there are so many people who are forced to go to a soul-sucking job and do something that just, you know, they are just longing for the weekend so they can do something that they want to do. And I wish that our society wasn't like this. I wish that people actually had more time to focus on their big passions in life and had the opportunity to actually learn how to paint, because they don't have time, they don't have energy, you know, they have barely enough time to take care of a family, you know, when they have some time off from work. So yeah, I'm just so happy. I truly am. I feel that the day that my life is over, I'm going to be like, yeah, I did what I wanted to do with my life, and I'm not bitter. And at the same time, I'm fully aware that maybe one day I won't be able to live this life anymore. Like, I'm super prepared for that. Like, the day might come when I'm like, I'm not selling any more paintings. I don't know what happened, but I can't sell anything, and I'm not making any money, and I don't know what to do then. But but I'm just super happy right now, today, to be able to do this. You know.
Of course, there were times throughout Linnea's life that she had doubts and struggles, and she struggled for many years with no real certainty that being an artist would in fact be a viable career for herself. She has had to make sacrifices to become who she is today, and after so many years, I think it's safe to say that she finally is a full-time artist. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please follow us on your favorite podcasting platform and leave us a review. It would help us grow and be seen by even more people that need to hear these inspiring stories. I'm your host, Jacob Johnson, and this is the Meyer Drill Podcast. I will see you in the next episode.